Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Three Little Pigs. You're lucky because this is an episode featuring a couple firsts for us. Now, our first ever special guest piglet, and then stay tuned at the end for our first ever Three Little Pigs faux pas of the week. I'm Dan Marion, joined as always by my brothers Jim, who's hiding out in the mountains of Colorado, and Brian, who's keeping it real in California. And collectively, we've been alive for over 133 years. We're fourth generation realtors, and we were born and raised in real estate families, which make us real estate experts. Now, our first special guest piglet ever is a master lender who has been creating wizardry in the mortgage industry for over 2 decades. Now, Peter DeYoung is joining us, and I want to say, Peter, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me today, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you today.
Thank you. So a little bit about me. I've been doing lending for about 30 years. I work for a national lender in Wells Fargo, and my federal employee ID is 442532, just for compliance purposes. But I look forward to answering your questions today, so thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so let's begin. Now, our loan applications and pre-qualifications at this time of year, would you say up, down, or how are they faring compared to last year at this time with the coronavirus and everything that's transpired in the last 45 days?
Yeah, so I think I can answer that. If you look at March and April, kind of collectively, there's no question there's been an uptick in applications because of the rate environment. Now, I would say that in the month of March, I think there was still a lot of activity around purchase, and I would say it was probably 50-50. As the coronavirus stay-at-home orders and those kind of things have continued a little bit, I think we've seen some of the purchase pre-qualification just pause for a little bit. I found that in particular, my purchase activity in March and early April was a little bit more robust than it has been at the end. And I think that's just coming with people being a little bit more saturated and tired with all this news and when are we going to get back to normal. But there's no question if you compare 2020 numbers compared to 2019 numbers, just in terms of mortgage applications in general, we are at an all-time peak.
Okay, good.
So, do you think that we're going to be seeing this level of interest rates over the next 6 to 12 months stay relatively stable? I saw some reports recently that projected that we may even see below 3% in 2021. What are your thoughts on where those rates are headed?
Yeah, so obviously as a mortgage professional, I'm not the best at predicting rates, but what I do is I rely on some of my industry partners for that information. Mortgage Bankers Association, National Association of Realtors, all of which have their economists. And most from what I read and from what I see and I really feel is true, is that right now we're in a low threes, 3.25 to 3.375 interest rate market. And from what I'm seeing is that will continue throughout the remainder of the year, that it's probably going to stay sort of flat. Now, what is sort of the unknown here is what is going to happen with unemployment rates and the full impact that's had. We don't really know that. So there might be pockets and troughs where things will dip down, but there's no question that the buying power that exists today for you and your clients is really strong. The affordability factor is really good. And, for almost 90% of the time when we're comparing somebody who's renting to somebody who can buy today, their housing payment is less than they're paying in rent.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
So
do you think it's also a good time to refinance as well with the way the market is? Do you think maybe people should wait a little bit, see how it plays out over the next 30 days?
Well, there's no question there's been an uptick in refinance activity, and every lender has a little bit of different take on how they proceed. I'm only going to speak to my lender because that's where I work. I'm an employee of Wells Fargo, but generally speaking, when we work with financial advisors and what have on, doing a cost benefit analysis of where you are today to where you want to be and how long you envision being in that home or being in that mortgage, generally financial advisors will share that they want that break even to be somewhere between 2 to 3 years in terms of the cost to get the new loan versus the savings on the new loan. And the reason why 2 to 3 years seems to be a general barometer is even though a customer might be taking a 15-year or a 30-year fixed mortgage, and in their mind, they might be thinking, hey, I'm going to have this mortgage forever. The statistics don't bear that out. In reality, the average life of a mortgage is like 7 to 8 years. Why? Because people move. Unfortunately, there's divorce, there's death, there's other factors in life that cause somebody to not realize that mortgage over the life of the loan. So generally speaking, financial advisors generally understand that. And so when they're looking at, that whole cost benefit analysis, that's what they're going to espouse and tell people to do. And we generally follow their guides. One particular thing that I would like to share about Wells is that because we don't know about the market, what we've been doing in the refinance space is we're locking our customers for 120 days at no additional charge. Normally, the refinance rate lock is about a 60-day period. And in most cases, we're closing most of our loans in 45 to 60 days. The reason why that 120-day lock period is nice is the borrower is then, if they choose to lock, they're protected from any worsening, but they can still float down and take advantage of an improving market for a nominal.
All right. Peter, let me cut you off there before we go too long. So with that, with you saying how the companies are adapting and stuff like that due to COVID, do you see now with job loss, stuff like that, do you see the lending tightening? Do you see it loosening? Because it seems like it's tightened back a little bit on what the products are. And, going back to 60 days, 90 days ago, it seems like the products, kind of bumped the bottom out a little bit.
Yeah, I think I like to use the word change more so than tightening. Yes, there is tightening in some buckets of the lending space, but there's also, you'll see constant fluidity on that. So right now, I'll just speak to one big change that's gone on in the market is that lending in the jumbo space, which would be 510, 400 for the Chicago MSA or higher, we're not doing less than 20% down in that jumbo space, whereas 3 months ago we would do maybe 10% down. That's a slight haircut, if you will, because of the unknowns. But for the most part, on the purchase standpoint, and I work for the bank, I'm a retail lender, we've seen very little change on the retail side where we're committed to doing purchases. So we're still helping people buy homes with FICO scores of 620 and above, and that really hasn't changed. There'll be differences over time, but I think you're going to see that rebound pretty strongly in the third and fourth quarter.
In addition to the changes in the rates, as far as timeframes, are the banks taking additional time to process? A lot of people won't allow appraisers to access the property. There's different factors like that. How are you seeing that impact the timeframes of what a purchaser should expect?
That's an excellent question, and that's kind of speaks to why Wells is doing the 120-day locks.
Ryan's full of excellent questions, Peter.
Yeah. So,
occasionally.
Yeah, we kind of understood that was going to be an issue, and rather than put a borrower or a buyer in harm's way where they're having to pay unnecessary fees because of the unknown, what happens if you encounter a situation where maybe the appraisal availability isn't as strong? We want to forecast for that. So, for the most part, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which are the conventional agencies, they are have a lot of products in place where we don't have to do internal inspections. In fact, for the most part, Wells's appraisals are going to be external unless a specific situation calls for it. So I hope that answers that question.
Jim, let me ask Jim, in Colorado, are you allowed to do appraisals right now? Could the appraiser enter a property?
The appraiser has never not been able to, as far as the real estate transaction is concerned, because it's always been a part of the contract. It's a contractual obligation. So that was an essential service regardless. But we did have people who were skittish of letting a stranger into their home, breaking quarantine, so there has been a trend of having more of drive-by appraisals for right now, with the idea that within, I think, like 120 days, then they, sometimes they'll actually get them in after closing, just as a double check. I don't really know, what impact that might have on things, but for the most part, it's been very much business as usual, except for some people more paranoid.
Okay. And Brian, what about you? Like in California, do you have appraisals going on?
We do have appraisals going on. We actually just had a seminar this week with a prominent attorney or law firm in San Francisco, specifically on this point. Pretty much anyone that's doing a refinance right now out here, if you say that your health is in jeopardy by the appraiser entering the property, most of the times they will go ahead and do a drive-by. But yes, they are still doing the drive-by appraisals. But we tell people, if they're not comfortable, you have to speak up and you have to let them know that it's going to have to be a drive-by appraisal. And from what this attorney's told us, they've not gotten any bank that's not agreed to them to just do a drive-by. Of course, they're probably sending a letter as an attorney, which helps, but it is something that you could speak up for if it's important to you.
And just following along those lines, like final walkthroughs. Like I had a client one time, we went to do the final walkthrough. They had taken all the appliances out of the property, because they did not like the buyer and the buyer price. Final walkthroughs, are those allowed, still going on?
There's additional forms regarding that, but basically if there's an occupied property, while it's still occupied, no entrance is the best solution.
You got to be careful about that.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And Peter, like lending's been an industry, and it's always been one of the first to conduct a lot of the processes online, virtually, with applications and stuff like that. And with that, what do you see as additional advances now that are going to be coming out of the past 45 days and that will be sticking around with the closings going forward? Like, it'd be great for agents never to have to go to a closing again, right?
Well, I actually like going to my purchase closings. It's an opportunity to kind of thank parties and celebrate the journey to home ownership. But having said that, I think your question is really on point. There is no question that the new normal is going to be advancement and improvements, and COVID is requiring us to rethink things. So as you've already alluded to, Dan, Jim and Brian, there's been advancements on the front end with applications with electronic acknowledgement of disclosures. There hasn't been as much of that on the closing side, with still a lot of lenders and or state laws requiring that wet signature, that face-to-face acknowledgement. But I do know that some of my title partners have started to experiment with videotaped recordings of closings. There are pilot programs going on where
That will put you to bed on a night when you need some sleep.
yeah, absolutely. I do know that artificial intelligence will continue to work its way through our industry. And, it's not unfeasible to think that at some point in time, it may not be in my lifetime, I'm 52, so I only have a little bit left on this earth, but at some point in time, can you imagine somebody coming and fingerprinting their acknowledgement to that closing package and being done with it and done electronically? So I think that they will continue to push the envelope on that as long as consumer safety is always front and center. We never want to put people in harm's way when they're buying their dream home for their family.
Okay. Jim, Brian, anything else for Peter while he's in the pig pen?
No, I like to be at the closing table too to help that celebration. So I'm kind of interested to see where it's going to be going forward, because we all, want it to be faster. Certainly there's those hour-and-a-half long closing packets. So hopefully they'll be able to at least knock some of that off. But there's something to be said about the psychological impact of just being to have that celebratory environment. So yeah, it's kind of a missing piece in action right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, hey, I want to thank you all for joining us. Or Brian, you have something?
No, I was just saying thanks for your time, Peter.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's I've known Dan for many, many years, and excited to get to meet his brothers here as well. So thanks for including me in the pig pen. I like it.
Yeah, you got it. So thank you guys, and we hope you enjoy, and stick around and watch the first video of the Three Little Pigs faux pas of the week. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.